Hi there, welcome to I Lone Fly Tarot. I'm going to do a tarot card reading for Scorpio energy, and we're going to get the cards out, and then we're going to read it from a couple different perspectives. Scorpio's emotional water sign energy, to grow and mature in any of the aspects, our heart, our mind, our 3D nature, our creative passion nature. We'd have to invest in those things, and Scorpio is about kind of exploring the mysteries of life emotionally. We're emotionally complex human beings, and some people found it too confusing and maybe just decided it was too confusing, and they really didn't want to even get to know themselves emotionally and work through their emotions. If we all think back to like when we were in junior high and high school and young adults, it can be really confusing, and we have all these conflicting feelings, and some people could have just decided, I'm not going to deal with it. Too confusing. And then they kind of bury that aspect of themselves underneath the surface, and then they could just decide to use their emotional nature kind of as needed, but then you could find them to be a little bit emotionally shallow and superficial, a little more emotionally manipulative with their emotions, that it's kind of hard to have a more deep, meaningful relationship with them because they're just not very connected in with their emotions. And another way to look at Scorpio could be people who are willing to kind of go on the roller coaster of life emotionally. It has highs, it has lows, and not everything we go pursue is going to work out the way that we want. And high vibe, though, you're willing to learn lessons from all those life experiences. Kind of, where was I kind of immature and reckless or whatever? What about the other people I was in relationships with? And learn those lessons. And some people could have given up on, they're not going to do the roller coaster. No more highs, no more lows. Want to play it safe, stay on the merry-go-round of life. And, you know, that's fine. Everybody's got free will. But if you get in a more mismatched relationship and someone is motivated to kind of do the highs and the lows and wants deep, meaningful relationships, getting in a relationship with someone who's on the opposite spectrum of that, eventually it could be a problem. I'm also getting some cards out of the Cost of Becoming deck, and Scorpio got Confusion Lingers when the choice is finally yours. And intensity means something real is emerging. Okay. So I think we'll look. These are the cards that are telling kind of what people are doing in their life. These cards here are telling us why those people are doing what they're doing. So I think we'll look at those first. Some people in their King of Wands energy, their own fire sign energy within themselves, we all tap into fire sign energy. Some of those people could be, and with the Queen of Pentacles above it, they're both looking to the past. And there's some people that, when the truth kind of sets us free. And over here at the end of the story, we have the Knight of Swords, the taking that leap of faith and moving forward. We have to see the truth about the things that a certain way of living life or viewing life in the Queen of Pentacles or in the Four of Pentacles, and then the Six of Wands of kind of being defensive. We'd have to see the truth of the things that hold us back from moving forward in life. And the Six of Swords is Aquarius energy. The Six of Swords moves away from the Five of Swords. We have to work through all this mental conflict. And here we have the Seven of Cups, which is Scorpio energy. And next to it is the King of Pentacles and the King of Swords. In high vibe, the King of Pentacles is about seeing the truth. And that would be a more mature energy than like the Four of Pentacles and the Seven of Wands. And then in the King of Swords, again, talking about the truth, we'd have to work through the emotional confusion about the things that make us defensive to maybe growing and maturing ourselves, getting more balance within ourselves. The King of Swords, I view as Libra energy represented by the scales of balance. We all initially, in our fire sign energy, I believe, we can be loving people and motivated by love, but we're pretty caught up in the world for the first 30 to 50 years of our life. There's a lot of things we want to go indulge in, go invest in. Uh, we can want to invest in our career, our education, other people, relationships, things of the world. And some people will maybe stay there all their life, more motivated and inspired in making their life more about themselves for these things of the world. And that can be their truth that they defend. And they're going to keep moving forward defending that view of life. Maybe in shadow, the Seven of Cups of Scorpio can kind of be caught up in the illusion of the world, and it's more about ego and image and status. And again, that's their truth, and that's in their fire sign energy of the Fool card, which also has some Aquarius and has some Pisces in it, which can all have to do, all three of those signs can have stuff to do with our dreams, from our mind, from our emotional nature, from our fire sign nature. The Queen of Pentacles can talk about emotionally what our truth is. The truth is, there's some people, their idea of the dream life is they could want to make their life more about themselves. Aries energy and the King of Wands is about the self. Emotionally, they could be more invested in themselves. Other people, they could be more emotionally invested and inspired by the world. The Four of Pentacles and the Queen of Pentacles, Earth sign energy about the world. Taurus and Capricorn, in their philosophy of life, the most important thing is of what they view as victorious and successful is to work with these things of the world, invest in these things of the world, and again, about themselves or these things of the world is the most important thing. And Gemini of the Knight of Swords talks about our dualistic nature of free will. For some people, their high vibe nature tries to get them to kind of see through the illusion. They're more than what they own, what they drive, how much money they have, their status, their ego, their image. There's more to life than that. You could have a more balanced life if you got more balance within yourself. But being tipped kind of more in favor about being about you or these things of the world keeps them kind of in the Seven of Wands is Leo energy, which can talk about our more worldly egoic nature. And that's kind of the truth. That's the foundation they operate from. And that's how they want to move forward. Well, that's fine, so long as they find other people who might want to live more from their mind than their heart, think it's just and fair to be in relationships, get in relationships, stay in relationships, more because they're caught up in these things of the world. So long as they find other people who have that same philosophy of life. That's why they want to get in relationships and stay in relationships. But if that's their truth, what about love? Well, they could think that that's being foolish. You run a risk of getting hurt doing that. You got to be practical and logical. Don't we all want these things of the world? Don't we want friendships and relationships and have a job? Well, then we should maybe sacrifice some of those things aligned with hope and faith and belief and love, because these things are the most important. And if some people are in relationships with people who are like that, they are probably feel they're in a just and fair relationship. They both view life that way. That's what is important. That's why they got in it. That's why they stay in it. And neither one could be people who are interested in working through their mental conflict, because the Eight of Swords is also Gemini energy. They could hide that they're kind of up in a mental prison, and that's a feminine figure, so they could keep their more emotionally intuitive, hopeful, believing, loving nature kind of imprisoned, and they let their more worldly, egoic nature run their life. The way I read tarot is the masculine figures can represent how people are presenting themselves in the world when we kind of take our worldly vessel out in the world and is considered masculine energy. And we can all present ourselves, male or female, any way we want. Emotionally, how do we really think and feel? And that's represented by the feminine figures. And the truth is, some people in their free will nature, emotionally, they're more inspired to make their life more about this worldly view of life. That's their idea of the dream life. Maybe living more from their mind than their heart. And they might hide that they're in a little bit of a mental prison because they might kind of feel stuck because they do kind of keep repeating an old pattern because they're not willing. The Five of Pentacles detaches from the Four of Pentacles, but you'd have to see the truth. Each one of the pentacles in high vibe can be that we've done some of this inner work to work through our fear, our insecurity, our pride, our ego, our stubborn nature, our being more manipulated by our worldly nature, and we see the truth of it, and we choose to take that cup of love to really live. The sixes can talk about balance, and this is Six of Swords, to be more balanced within ourselves. Do I want some of these things of the world just like other people? Yes, but I equally don't want to sacrifice truth and love and justice and fairness to have those things. And, the people who live their life like that, they're more emotionally inspired to stand up for themselves against their more worldly nature. I don't want being more about myself nature to dominate my life. I don't want my more worldly nature to dominate my life. I want to invest in myself and work through my inner conflict to kind of not give up my truth. What kind of a foundation do you operate from? Do you let your more worldly nature, codependent nature, fearful nature, lust, greed, pride, ego, codependency on the world, conformity to the world, is that the truth of the foundation you operate from? Some people do. Other people are like, nope, that's not my truth. And I've been in relationships and I've worked for people that is kind of their philosophy of life. And that is what drives them, motivates them. And they could be a little defensive to being in a more deep, meaningful relationship. Might be a little defensive to being more just or fair. Emotionally growing and maturing themselves, aligning with their more hopeful, believing, loving nature. And so we can all have lived our life getting in friendships and relationships where we could always, you could be a more hopeful, believing, loving nature, and you get in relationships with people who, maybe aren't as much. They can be people that, can be kind of emotionally mature and victorious and successful in a lot of ways, stable and grounded in a lot of ways, but just kind of defensive to really doing a more deep, meaningful relationship. So, if you keep moving forward in that relationship, which you might try to encourage them to work through their fears and insecurities and look at life from a different perspective in the Hangman. But we can't make people do that. They have to be motivated and inspired within themselves to even want to change, both, to want to maybe figure out why do they let those things manipulate them so much? Why are they so consumed? I mean, got an alarm on my phone. High vibe people put in work and effort to have stability and security and balance in their life and treat other people the way they like to be treated and their job, their education, things like that. But they're just not willing to sacrifice their dreams and love. Like, I'm not going to stay in a job that I don't like. I might have to be in some jobs I don't like, but eventually, I want to get in jobs that are more aligned with my truth, that maybe more aligned with my unique talent, skills, and interests. That I think maybe where if some people in shadowy energy were more, it can be bossy or controlling or defensive or stubborn. I want to work with people who are more just and fair and balanced. We all might have to go through some life experiences, and part of going through those life experiences is to help us get more clear about what our truth is and what our truth isn't. And is this my idea of the dream job, dream friendship, dream relationship? What about the people I'm working with? What about the people I'm in friendship and relationship with? What do they value? What are they motivated and inspired by? What do they think is just and fair? How do they treat other people? And it's kind of going on this journey to learn these lessons to help us work through the confusion of the fact that, in our own Scorpio nature, we're emotionally complex. We're dealing with other emotionally complex people, and they all have things that they're motivated and inspired by, things they want to invest their time and energy into, things that they view as victorious, things that they think are just and fair. And it's kind of just trying to find the right mix, right? And the people we might have hung out with at different stages in our life could change over time, because we might have viewed life a certain way and felt certain ways and had more defensive nature or stubborn nature or immature nature or codependent natures, at different stages when we were 15 and when we were 18 and when we were 21 and when we were 25. But all those experiences, we could have met some people who were very loving and encouraging and supportive, and we could have also met some people who are kind of shadowy. And all of those things kind of helped us get more clear up, and as we continue in life, kind of get more clear about really more what our truth is and what our truth isn't. And some of the people along our journey in life, some of those people, they realized they weren't aligned with our truth, and we realized they weren't aligned with ours. And we didn't want to keep moving forward with them, and they didn't want to keep moving forward with us eventually. Could we sometimes be drawn and attracted to people, and we can be very different, but we can be attracted to each other. We could like each other. We could have common social activities and interests and things that we do. And so we come into contact with those people, and we could learn things from them, and they could learn stuff from us. But we could have realized, we just live our life too different. And maybe some of those friendships or relationships we got in were only oriented around certain activities, because that's what we had in common. Like, whatever it is, I'm at the pool, you're at the pool. Um, I go jogging, you go jogging. We're in school together, But we could know with some of those people from the get go that we were very different. And then in a lot of those cases, it's not really a problem. We kind of knew it. And we maybe never got in a more involved relationship with some of those people. Other people, we weren't sure. And then getting in a relationship and a more involved friendship or relationship with them, it served a purpose of helping us get more clear about what our truth was and our truth wasn't. And with some of those people, people could have been a little more hurt and a little more defensive, but you kind of realized our truth is kind of different, and how we envision our life and how we want to move forward, and the different ways of being that we think are just and fair are different. So some of those relationships were more confusing and more hurtful, right? Well, we go on these experiences, and we're all in those kind of experiences again. We're always, as long as we're alive, we're kind of on the journey, right? But again, hopefully, if we learn lessons during those life experiences and we emotionally grow and mature ourselves, we see where we're maybe more about ourselves or more defensive or more fearful or more codependent or more caught up in looking to things to be the answer, and we haven't learned to maybe love ourselves or something. All these different relationships that we're going to, and friendships that we're going to get into, we're all part of the journey of trying to help us, if we look at it that way. And that's what Sagittarius energy here is about. Our high vibe nature wants us to not keep staying stuck and up in a mental prison and doesn't want us to keep repeating an old pattern. Please see the truth. you know and some people, again, you have to be willing to want to see the truth. And when people repeat certain patterns over and over, which we all could have done at all these different stages of life, and we could be tempted to repeat an old pattern again. If I've already been there and I've done that, and I already knew there was things, if I get in relationships with certain types of people and they think certain ways, behave certain ways, have a certain viewpoint in life, treat people a certain way, and I already know I don't like that, why would I get in a more involved relationship with them? I'd just be repeating the same pattern. But we'd have to see how we are repeating that pattern. And again, when it happens again in the Eight of Swords and the Hangman, I'm kind of in a mental prison and I feel stuck. There is that more kind of immature nature, is what the Page of Wands and Shadow can be. I just want to go feel better. Well, repeating an old pattern could be, indulging ourself in our more fearful, defensive, I just want to feel better. So there's a lot of things that I could go emotionally invest in. Drinking, drugs, booze, partying, gambling, go get in a relationship with someone I really shouldn't be getting in a relationship with. Go get in a relationship with someone I've already been in a relationship with that I already know is shadowy. And some people could be thinking about that right now. And it's like, I could go do that. And then they could decide, this is the Eight of Swords, this is the Six of Swords. The difference is the Two of Swords. And the Two of Swords can be, am I going to stay in denial of the truth and still stay in two minds about the truth? Or am I going to listen to my intuition? Am I going to take the lessons I've learned from those life experiences, love myself, emotionally invest in myself, stand up for myself, kind of hold on to the position I'm at? If I've already had people move away from me and I've moved away from them, again, sometimes we can do that because we were on different places at different times, right? And if everybody wasn't really hurtful and unkind and all that, it's possible that some people could reconnect in family dynamics and friendship groups, and even some people they had been in a relationship with at one point in time. But the thing is, the high vibe people invest in themselves. They are willing, high vibe energy is willing to humble yourself. Shadowy energy is being more in your ego. Some people already got out of some things, repeated some patterns, and they didn't want to move forward. The Four of Cups can feel like you missed an opportunity. Is there people in my life or people that I've known? Because again, when we have free will choice, we were going down the road of life and we had these different choices of people to get in friendship with or not even pursue friendship with or date, and we got in friendships and relationships with other people. Or we could have been in friendships and relationships with some people, but because then of some other people we could have wanted to invest in or got involved with, that then those ones we drifted away from or we got out of, and, we went on a journey to learn some lessons in life. And then if we go on that journey and we kind of realize, oh, no, That was just, um, I had some valuable life lessons to learn. And now I could look at life differently. The hangman can kind of be being enlightened to the truth. And the difference between the one sword and the eight of swords is the seven of swords, which also is Aquarius energy. I had a dream and I met some people or got in a friendship or a job or a relationship, possibly a marriage with the King and Queen of Pentacles. They're the only marrieds through the deck, or someone who I thought was more on the same page. And maybe I wanted to get married, maybe I wanted to have kids, maybe some other people weren't sure if they wanted to do that. So I could have, for example. Well, then we think we kind of have the same dream, but in any situation or relationship that we're in our life, everyone has the free will every moment in a relationship that we can go through some challenging times and it can be confusing. And some people could get more up in their head and kind of maybe get up in their fear. Some people could take some immature action, more maybe out of ego, maybe fear of moving forward, fear of love, fear of having hope and faith and belief in themselves and others and their dreams. And then some people repeat an old pattern, and other people feel unloved because we thought we were all on the same page and we all had the same dream. But again, maybe we weren't kind of seeing the truth that, maybe we got in some more mismatched relationships and, they were kind of more about the world and that was more the reason for being in the relationship. And you thought everybody would be motivated and inspired by love. And, again, going on that journey to realize the truth that everybody has free will. And in a world of duality, there are people who somewhere in their life decided, nope, I am not I'm not motivated and inspired by that dream of having more hope and faith and belief in myself, in others, and in love, or looking at life from a higher perspective, or even believing in a higher truth or justice. I'm more about the world, or I'm more about me. Do I want to be in a relationship? Do I like being in a relationship? Do I maybe want to get married and have children? Some of them, yes. But I just don't buy into that. It's just not their truth. And it can be really hard for us to kind of wrap our brain around that for the people who don't think like that. You think everybody would be motivated and inspired by love. Everybody would want to work through their fear, their insecurities, or their self-limiting beliefs if they had loving people in their life. But at any point in time in our life, we can want to stay in our comfort zone and repeat an old pattern because to move forward in life differently is a little scary. And you have to have a little more hope and faith and belief in yourself. And maybe you haven't learned to love yourself. So then, even though you can be a loving person, if your comfort zone is kind of to be, and your pattern is to kind of be in a relationship with people who are more worldly focused or self-focused, you're not maybe used to being in relationships with people who treat you the way you treat them. And to be in relationships with people who do treat you the way you treat them, it's like, this is different. This is kind of weird. It's kind of uncomfortable. Like, is this going to work? Is it not going to work? And then you kind of get up in your head about it, and then you kind of have to change how you view yourself and how you view the world and what you believe is possible. And sometimes we're not ready to move forward differently, so we will kind of keep repeating an old pattern and like, oh no, I'm sure this will work. and we keep doing that and it keeps not working, and we keep feeling stuck and left out in the cold and unloved, and eventually the loving people decide, I have been trying to be loving and encouraging to people who kind of don't want to take my cup of love. They might want to move forward with me, but they want to move forward in this more worldly viewpoint of life. That's kind of their truth. And I kind of feel like if I keep moving forward with them, I'm going to feel like I miss an opportunity in love. And that whole experience can make people think, I do deserve love. And I think I've learned that I'm capable of it because I've been in relationships with people who kind of really aren't motivated and inspired by love. And I've been very loving and encouraging. Well, I want someone to also want to be loving and encouraging of me, and these people don't do that. And there also, needless, can be people in your life who are those kind of people, but maybe a lot of the romantic partners you get into relationship with aren't, and even some of the other people in your life aren't. And all that life experience can force some people to be like, I don't want to do that anymore. And it kind of forces them to have to invest in themselves and stand up for themselves and love themselves to get the justice they deserve. And everybody can be upset. You can be upset at some of the people you've been in friendships and relationships with because they weren't aligned with your truth. And of course, you think your truth is just and fair. And they can be mad at you because you didn't think their truth was just and fair and you weren't willing to do life the way they wanted to do it. And that's when we kind of realize the truth. Everybody has free will. I need to quit getting in relationships with people when they show me they're kind of more about themselves or like to go indulge in things to an extent to make themselves feel happy that I don't want to be involved in it, or they're more immature, or they're more stubborn, or they're more prideful, or they're more egotistical, or more definitely driven where the financial stuff is the most important thing. High vibe energy is I want a more balanced life. Do I want some of those things in the world? Yes, but I also want truth and love and justice and fairness and a deep, meaningful relationship. And I've seen the truth of who that is not their truth. So I stand up for myself. And I get inspired within myself to work through all the mental and emotional confusion, not repeating some of those patterns, standing up for myself, investing in myself, getting balance within myself, working through the mental confusion that some people, some of those people, they could feel I was deceptive and manipulative, for example. I could feel that those people were deceptive and manipulative. Maybe we both look at life from different perspectives, and they think, of course, this made logical, practical sense. But, of course, if they're shadowy, again, they could have been kind of more hiding behind their ego nature and really weren't letting their more authentic, loving nature out to play. And it could have felt a little more emotionally detached. Could it have had all these things of the world that people want? Yes. But what about love? And of course, they think, well, these are the most important things. You should have stayed in it. Or you should have stayed at this job. It doesn't matter how we treat you, or you should have stayed in this friendship. And it's like, I don't want the illusion. That can be your truth. Could we all have felt angry? Could we have all felt hurt? Could we all felt stuck? Could we all been up in our head because we had to go get a different job, friendship, or relationship? Yeah. And everybody's going to go about it differently. The people who are more motivated to want to keep living their life like that because that's their truth, they're going to go try to find other people who live life that way or want to make their life about those things or get in a relationship or stay in a relationship for those reasons. Some people who might have, that can be like a shadowy Taurus philosophy of relationship, is this idea that Whoever has more of these things of the world that people want, whether it's like, look, I'm really attractive, who wants to be in a relationship with someone who's really attractive, male or female? Well, if that's what they think is their prized possession that they have to offer people, they are looking for people to be willing to indulge them in a relationship for those reasons. And that can be their philosophy of life. If I have money, status, image, power, influence, social clout, attractive, charming, or it's all in my own head and I'm an egotistical narcissist, that is how they view life. That is a shadowy Taurus philosophy of life, regardless of what zodiac sun sign they are. It's not about it being more just and fair or motivated and inspired by love. No, I have these things that people want, and they should kind of make me kind of the more privileged, indulged person in the relationship. So it's like getting in a relationship with someone who they want to have emotionally invest in them, male or female, and they really don't have to grow or heal or mature themselves or be more just or fair. At a core foundational level. Could they work together with people in a more just and fair and be kind of loving and encouraging and all that so the relationship moves forward and it's more harmonious? That's their free will choice. But at a core foundational truth, it could be I operate more from my worldly egoic nature of myself, and it's kind of more about me. And other people think exactly the opposite. Well, that's not just and fair. And they're like, I think it's just and fair. And a high vibe Taurus philosophy of life is that it should be just and fair. And you should be in the relationship because you love people. And you should want other people to be in a relationship with you because they love them. And yeah, shadowy people would prefer to have somebody who loves them be in a relationship with them. But if they can't find somebody who loves them, well, are you willing to indulge me? You're not going anywhere, right? You're never going to love and believe in yourself, right? You're going to stay here and you'll keep staying in the relationship. That would be good for my ego and my image. And that's part of my idea of the dream life, in my ego. I don't really care if they're immature. Some of them don't care if the people they're in a relationship are bitchy, witchy, immature, or what they do. You're not going anywhere, are you? That would be the biggest ego thing, is if somebody left. They could even get in a relationship with someone they would rather not be in a relationship with. But you're not going to go anywhere, right? Okay, we'll create the illusionist love, and that is just and fair. I mean, it just depends on how prideful and egotistical people are. And if in their pride and ego, they think, oh my gosh, I would hate to get in a relationship and one day have those people leave. That would be so crushing to my ego. Well, I guess they don't maybe care, It was like, if I've got to indulge them, if I got to have sex with them and I don't want to have sex with them, if I got to put up with them, I'll just put on like my mental earbuds and not pay attention to them. I don't care what they do. I mean, isn't that wild to think that some people think like that? But I think there's some people who think like that. And other people, that's not their idea of the dream life. That's not how they think. It's not how they rationalize and reason within themselves. But some people are very afraid, very defensive of their more egoic nature. The most important thing is to have someone maybe be in a relationship with them, because some people could think just being in a relationship kind of says something about them and their worth and value. High vibe people, I'm not going to be in a relationship just to be in a relationship. I don't think that does define my worth and value. There might be other people in the world who think like that. Well, they can go do that with each other and view each other as valuable because they're maybe in a relationship. I'd rather, if there's nobody in my environment for me to be in a relationship with, is that a bummer? Yeah, but I'm going to keep moving forward. I'm not going to go get in a relationship just to be in a relationship, because when someone comes along who I feel is the type of person I want to be in a relationship, I don't want to be tangled up in a relationship. I want to be free to go invest in that person. And that's what some people are doing right now. And some of the people who didn't do that could meet people who they think, oh my gosh, that would be someone I'd really like to be in a relationship with. But they're in a mental prison about speaking the truth and revealing the truth. And not everybody got in relationships for shadowy reasons. Again, we can get in these relationships, anytime going down the path of life, people can start to drift their life down into the ditch. And some people who at one time could have seemed more just and fair and stable and balanced and loving, at any time people can make that decision to start indulging in some poor patterns, and they kind of drive their life off into the ditch. And the people they're in a relationship, they were going down the road of life together, and then the other person's kind of down in the ditch, and they want you to keep staying in a relationship with them. And it's like, but you kind of made some decisions to go invest in some things and kind of being defensive to being more just and fair, or investing in this and working through things, that now it's a completely out of balance relationship. But we can all be manipulated in our more worldly egoic nature. We can all want those things to work out the way we want them to work out. So again, we don't want to leave. We try to offer the people love and encouragement to try to work through those things. But if you're working with other people, the other people have to be inspired to even want to work through those things. And some of them are like, no, I'm okay with it being this way now. It's like, well, I'm not. And there too, some people do create an illusion. They create the illusion they're a more just, fair, stable, balanced person. And then they get people to take that job, get in that friendship, get in that relationship. And then as time goes by and they kind of think they got that other person more emotionally invested in it, then it's like, okay, I think I can start doing some of this bullshit. And yeah, they might feel left out in the cold, and yeah, they might feel sad, and they might feel unloved, but I don't think they're going to go anywhere. I don't think they'll love and believe in themselves. So, perfect. I got someone who's invested to stay in the relationship for the ego and the image and the status, who doesn't want to leave, and they keep not maybe wanting to see the truth or stand up for themselves or love themselves, that I get to be kind of more immature, which could have been the truth of who they were from the beginning. They just decided to try to create an illusion they were more just and fair and balanced and mature than they really were. Well, that's like committing fraud in a relationship. And when people aren't maintaining the contract, it's like breaking a contract. And that's when some people are like, would I like it to work out? Yes. Can I kind of be up in my head maybe about what people will say and what my future would be? Yeah. But that is what I view as like high vibe. Aquarius is that and high vibe Taurus, I adhere to a higher truth and justice. This isn't just and fair. And again, with some of the people, I don't think it's love that drives and motivates you. I think it's more about you or the status or the ego or the image of it. That's not my truth. And people can be loving and encouraging, but eventually they feel stuck and imprisoned in a relationship. That's shadowy energy. Shadowy energy at the big picture is the devil. Looks just like the lover's card, kind of like the devil and God. But instead of an angel, there's a devil, and people have chains and shackles on them. It's oppressive, confining, limiting, restrictive, oppressive, imprisoning, not just and fair. It's manipulative. And trying to use these things of the world, or your love, or your conforming to the world nature, to make you keep staying in it. And some people work through all of that, and it's like, no, I'm going to stand up for myself and what I believe in. You can stand up for what you believe in. I'm going to face my fears, and I'm inspired to move forward and love myself and believe in myself, and I'm not willing to give up on my dreams. And apparently, my idea of the dream life, being working together in a deep, meaningful relationship, being just and fair, loving and encouraging, apparently that's not your thing. So you can do your thing with someone else. And I'm going to move forward in my life. And then, as people move forward, it's kind of going through this process of transmuting all of those energies to really free yourself from it. And Scorpio is represented by the Death card. And when people come out with the one pentacle, the one sword, the one wand, they work through all their mental conflict about emotionally detaching from it. It's one thing to move away from people and distance yourself from them, and then it's going through the process of emotionally detaching. And as some people moved away, that's what they did. They decided to invest in themselves, to stand up for themselves, to people in their life who were continuing to move forward in the way they had been moving forward, maybe in that more worldly or shadowy view of life, who were holding back from them also. And it's like, okay, well, we seem to have different foundational in our Capricorn energy of what we view as victorious and successful. Yours is more about you or these things of the world, and mine is more about being inspired by truth and love. High vibe, shadowy Capricorn is represented by the devil. High vibe Capricorn in high vibe is the King of Pentacles. I have freed myself from things that used to manipulate me. And I am standing up for myself in my worldly nature of self for my more emotionally creative, inspired, hopeful, believing, loving nature. Speaking my truth, listening to my intuition, working through my fears and insecurities, not letting myself repeat past patterns, continue to move forward, loving and believing in myself while I'm moving forward with the people in my life who do work together with me that way, meeting other people, communicating with other people in my life, maybe about the lessons I've learned and how I'm moving forward and who wants to come with. And some of the people are like, no, that's not my truth. Okay. Other people might be like, why don't I move forward like that? Why do I keep living my life like this? Why am I more defensive? Why don't why don't I want to be in more just and fair and balanced and loving relationships? And you communicate your truth and you keep moving forward and let them work through it because they may never work through it. you know? And eventually you kind of see, who is moving forward with you. You can only work with people who are willing to invest in that truth with you to bring that dream into reality. And getting out of your ego and accepting the truth of people who aren't interested in investing in that dream with you. And it's kind of accepting the truth that your dream couldn't come into reality with those people anyway. And it's time to move on. And it can be sad. And you can be sad that other people, some of the people who don't move forward with us, it's because they're in their own just and fair and loving relationships. And we could meet people, talk to people we don't know they're in relationships. And then we find out they are. And it's like, oh, damn. But, well, they'll be a good role model for the next people you're going to meet. But you take that cup of love to keep moving forward, believing in yourself, believing in your dreams, and the people in your life, some of you are in good jobs, friendships, and relationships, or marriages, and some of these other people could just be other people in your family, in your life, in your neighborhood, in your workplace, and it's kind of dealing with all these different types of people, and it's kind of seeing, because of your life experience, seeing the people who kind of repeat poor patterns or are more immature or more about themselves. It's like, thank you for showing me the truth of who you are. Can I still know you, work with you, if I have to? But I'm more focused on working with the people who are loving and encouraging to me as I'm loving and encouraging to them, to keep moving forward, loving and believing in ourselves, and moving forward in life, continuing to grow and heal and mature ourselves. And while some people are doing that, again, some people are like, no, I don't want to look at life from a higher perspective. I don't want to step out of my comfort zone. I don't want to do love. I don't want to deal with the truth. I'm okay continuing to live my life here. And everybody kind of learns lessons and has different lessons to learn. So, at a stage of your life, you could go through something that is a very difficult lesson for you at that stage of life, for a lesson you need to learn. Other people could breeze through that stage of life, but everybody's day will come, basically, I think, because we all have to have things within ourselves to overcome. Some people could have harder things to overcome. Some people could, it can be different, but in a way, again, it's kind of the same. It's just different. And so then we cannot really understand it because we don't understand why certain things could manipulate them the way it does. But then in turn, they might not understand why some things manipulate us and why things that manipulate them don't manipulate us. And it's like, and again, sometimes some people come into our life for a period of time. Hopefully, we were loving and encouraging when we were in it. We could have all helped each other through difficult periods of time. But then once we kind of worked through some of those issues that we could have helped each other with, that could have been the purpose, at the bigger picture that we weren't aware of, to help us again work through some things, help each other through some difficult times, enjoy some fun times together. But then as we kind of get to where we've kind of worked through some of those things, then we might kind of realize that, how we want to move forward is different, and kind of things we want to do next could be different. And I think high vibe people offer truth and love to themselves in the situation. That's how they can get out of their ego about it. Let's look at these cards again. Confusion lingers when the choice is finally yours. Intensity means something real is emerging. That kind of reminds me of Scorpio energy. So let's go see what's coming up. People have invested in people that they wanted to have a victory with, but those things didn't necessarily, not, whether that was back when our moms and our dads, our brothers, our sisters, friends, family, whoever, we've all went through that. The difference can be, who are the people who learn to expand their perception of themselves and the world around them? We all could have went through some stages where we kind of indulged ourselves in some poor behavior to feel better and more codependent energy. But who are the people who eventually are willing to look at life differently and see how things need to change? The fives talk about change, and ultimately realizing the only person I can change is me. Aries energy, again, is about the self. I can offer other people truth and love and encouragement and want to work with them, but I can't make them view life differently, grow up, work through their fears or their past pain and heartbreak. The only person I can change is me. And if I don't want to repeat this pattern, I need to invest in myself, love myself, free myself from things that manipulate me, be more inspired by letting love and intuition guide me than being more manipulated by my worldly nature. Keep expanding my perception of myself, because what we want to manifest starts kind of in Pisces, is emotional water sign, like Scorpio. It helps us transition out of things when we expand. We had this way of viewing life, and we had this dream or something we wanted to come into reality, but it didn't. So then we have to accept the truth of it. That's what helps us get unstuck. And again, between the 8, let go of the illusion that that dream could come into reality in the Seven of Swords? Because we've seen it didn't. So then it's listening to our intuition from the 8 down to the 6. Quit staying stuck like at that crossroads and make the decision to take that leap of faith and be inspired to let love and intuition guide the choices that we make, looking at life from a higher perspective, keeping things in perspective, looking at life from the big picture instead of getting caught up in like the here and now. Slow, steady steps forward in the direction I want to go and not repeating old patterns, because that just gets me back stuck in an old cycle. So, based on the truths that we've been enlightened to, it stops us in our fire sign nature of ourself from chasing after people or indulging poor behavior in ourselves. It's like, no, if I've communicated my truth to people, then I move on and kind of the ball's in their court. And if they don't decide to invest in working together with me in this way, then I get out of my ego about it. God knows where they're at. God knows what I want to manifest. And I keep moving forward in my truth. So what's coming up for the people who harness some high vibe Scorpio? Who are having these new beginnings? Not wanting to repeat some old patterns. Oh, a card not showing itself. And the reason is because of the Ace of Wands. In all three of your fire sign energies, in your Aries, your Leo, your Sagittarius, you are ready to have a new beginning, inspired to move forward in life, to learn the lessons you're meant to learn, and go on the next adventure of learning more lessons. And because you are inspired to not give up on yourself and give up on your dreams, not stay in a lack mentality or someplace where you felt kind of rejected or left out in the cold or unloved, those weren't the people for you, obviously. So you see the truth of it. And what some people don't know about you as you're moving forward in your life, people can see you moving forward. It's just shadowy people. It can be more from ego and strategy, living more from their mind than their heart. It's all about trying to create this illusion about who they are and what their life is like. So those people will probably think you're just creating an illusion. But what they don't know about you is you were enlightened to the truth. And that inspired you to move forward in your life and not repeat that old pattern. Some of the shadowy people in your life are like waiting for you to come back and do it the way they wanted you to do it. What they don't realize is that you spoke your truth in love and you've moved on. Ball's in their court. And as more time goes by and they keep living their life the way they live it, the more you realize that apparently your truth isn't the same, And eventually you don't even view them as people you'd really probably want to hang out with or be in a friendship or relationship with anyway. And you could, if you think they're kind of shadowy, some of them, again, some of them could be a good role model for you and have been a good role model. But for some of the shadowy people in your life, they don't realize that you work through how you harness this in a more worldly, shadowy way, which is probably what got you in those friendships and relationships and kind of tempted you to repeat it. But when you work through how you weren't going to harness this in a more worldly, shadowy way and detach from it, you were willing to detach from the other people in your life that wanted you to be in that energy in a shadowy way. And what they don't know is you now harness it in a high vibe way. What is it? The Queen of Pentacles over here. You could be a very loyal, nurturing, loving person, whether you're male or female. Just emotionally, that was the type of person that you are. And I view that as Taurus energy. And you could have this philosophy of life, again, that, you're very motivated and inspired by love. And you can be very loving and giving, and you can put a lot of work and effort into trying to make relationships just and fair and balanced and You want them, you invest in people emotionally. You want them to keep being in your life. And sometimes there's shadowy people who kind of take advantage of that. Oh, they want this to work out. I can act like this and I can do that. And I can kind of be stubborn or prideful or whatever. They'll come back because that's just kind of the person they are. Have a hard time in your Scorpio energy emotionally detaching and letting people go. But what they don't know is that could have been from a more, you were kind of maybe tipped out of balance. You were more inspired by being investing in people and being loving and encouraging to people to an extent that you didn't really require it to be more just and fair. And so the relationships would kind of get out of balance. People can get spoiled in a relationship because you're very loving and nurturing and you're always the one calling them and planning things and doing things and always the one to reach out. And sometimes people are just like, oh, well, I don't have to do any of that. They'll do it. And then they kind of get used to it. And some of them even start to feel like, well, you should do that, you know? And they could start to think that you do that because, like, more because of who they are than that was a free will choice you made. That's the kind of person you are. And some of those people did take it for granted and they decided, shoot, I can just go. If you're not willing to keep doing it or indulge me to a certain degree and you want it to maybe be more just and fair, well, I'll just go find someone else. I'm sure someone else would want to indulge me that way. Some of those people could have went to go invest in some people thinking those people were going, again, it's like being in a relationship with someone who really likes you and loves you. Well, that is something that people should have appreciated and defended and held on to, but some people kind of got in their ego and they could have went to go find some other people thinking maybe since you were that way, that must be because of them, not because that's just the truth of who you are. It must be because of who they are, which, yes, there was things you could have liked about them, right? And then they could go invest in other people, and as time goes by, some other people kind of become defensive to them. And then they're kind of confused, like, well, why aren't these people treating me the way you used to treat them? You used to put in a lot of work and effort to kind of indulge them and make things seem to be okay and just and fair and loving and encouraging. And they're looking for someone else to do that. And some other people in their life are like, I'm not doing that. you know? You can try to go get that person to get back in a relationship with you. And then they're in a mental prison because the high vibe people in their life were illuminated to the truth that they were kind of immature or more about themselves or full of themselves or more materialistic. And that's why they didn't stay in this relationship. And now the other people have moved on. And now, instead of emotionally investing more in them, you emotionally invested in yourself. And you could be looking very victorious and successful in the world and look like you have justice in the world, and you're defensive to those people. And do you keep listening to your intuition and you keep moving forward? And yeah, with some of those people, they are not people that you view as people you want to emotionally invest in. Certainly not the way you did before. It would have to, other people would have to see the truth and they would have to communicate that truth to you, that they have learned these lessons in life. And some of them are like, would like to move forward with you. But again, they indulge their more immature nature. They're not willing to speak the truth, uh, you know, to the world, basically, that, not willing to humble themselves and admit they made mistakes and had some lessons to learn. Nope, they can go. I'll just go find someone else to be in a relationship. And again, they might get in a relationship with someone who they could even not really want to be in a relationship with because that person could be more like them. And nobody's really more inspired by love. Everybody's defensive. Everybody's kind of immature. But if it looks just and fair by worldly standards, and they're both willing to stay in it, they might move forward in it. They might just hide there in a mental prison and they feel stuck and they mutually indulge each other, and that they're moving forward with people who aren't loving because neither one of them really want to do love. None of them want to come out from behind their ego. So it's just kind of indulging themselves in a relationship with other people who they're in a relationship with that also probably know that other people don't want to be in a relationship with them because they're more full of themselves or immature or defensive or superficial or defensive to love, and they're compatible. So they're going to move forward in a relationship probably. Or some of the shadowy people, they create this illusion with different people. They indulge in it for as long as it lasts, when eventually the other people are like, is this dream ever going to come into reality? And if we're not willing to do that, like, I'm leaving. And then they're like, okay, time for me to go find someone else to create an illusion with and go create an illusion with that person that I'm willing to bring that dream into reality, but I'm not. But as long as you think I am, we'll keep moving forward in it. And until you are willing to leave, then you'll find out I'm not willing to leave with you. And I'm going to go find someone else again to go indulge in a relationship and create an illusion with. Some people don't want to do love. Some people don't want. It's just more about being in a relationship, whether they get married to the people or not. It's just to indulge themselves in the relationship. And same way if like there's bad managers out in the world in workplaces, they just cycle through people. The people who aren't going to put up with their shit eventually leave. They go hire someone else, create an illusion, and eventually those people find out about the truth of who they are. And if those people choose to stay, they stay, and those people have to indulge them in their bullshit. And the people who aren't going to keep indulging them and have a way to get out of there, they get out of there. And that's the truth of how some people are. What they maybe don't expect, some of them, some people really are who they say they are, and we can all tell right away when we meet them, oh yeah, you got some issues going on here, which is fine. They probably find people to be in a relationship with. It's kind of like, everybody could be 45 years old, but like some are like in a 15-year-old relationship, some are in an 18-year-old relationship, like emotional maturity level. And hey, to each their own, and everybody's at their own emotional maturity level. But some shadowy people, it is just about to create this illusion about who they are. The ones who really are who they say they are, it's not a problem. People know the truth. You are truthfully being, not trying to create an illusion. Everybody can see that you're at whatever stage of life you're at emotionally, and the people who want to get in a relationship with you, that's their free will choice. Other people don't want to, but hey, teach your own. What's worse is the people who try to create an illusion, and they could keep thinking they can create an illusion, but if they created an illusion about the type of person they are, and they had people in their life, their friends and family, and people they could have grown up with in their life, as more and more time goes by, eventually even more of those people start to move on, because, it's kind of weird to stay in a friendship or relationship where you kind of thought, you just had this way, and conversations you'd have and things you'd talk about because you thought they were this certain type of person and had these certain ways of viewing life and conducting themselves. And then, seeing as time goes by, that's not the truth of who they are. And it could really bother some of the shadowy people because they don't like people seeing through the illusion. And so sometimes, then again, the people they'd really kind of like to be in a relationship with that are more on the same page as them, people in their life could kind of frown on that. So then, they don't want people to view them that way. If they're more materialistic and they'd really like to be in a relationship where it's more about money, they know if they were to get in that relationship, people would be like, oh my gosh, I think that they're only in it for those reasons, and they kind of drift away. So then they have to get out of those relationships, and then they get in a relationship with someone that's not aligned with their truth, and then they feel stuck in it, and they don't, they're not like living their truth. And people should just live their authentic truth. And for the people who keep not living their authentic truth, if you want to go be more immature, be more immature. Own it. If you're more prideful and egotistical, own it. If you're more materialistic, own it. Live your authentic life of how you want to live your life. But, because the truth is going to come out one way or another if people aren't living their truth. What's coming up for the shadowy people they don't see coming? The Knight of Pentacles and the Two of Wands. They never put in this work and effort in themselves to work through the things that manipulate them. It keeps manipulating them. They could have friends and family members that manipulate them, that they could be codependent on. They get in relationships with other people, but then if their friends or family members tell them, we don't like those people, we don't want you to move forward with those people, that is the primary foundation in their life, and they will more align with those people. So they create an illusion when they get in relationships with other people that those people, they'll detach from that old foundation, which they should. This should be their primary relationship if they're in a romantic relationship or marry someone. But for some of them, they're more immature and codependent. Or if even the world, some people in the world have a problem with what someone they're in a relationship with is doing, even though they could love that person, and they have this just and fair relationship, they're so manipulated to have a certain status or image in the world that they won't stay in a relationship with those people. Even though those people that are moving forward in high vibe energy aren't trying to hurt anyone, they're just living their authentic life. But that could be outside the box, and they're not conforming in a certain way like everybody else conforms in a certain way. So what they don't see coming is the more high vibrational people that could be in their life, they have a dream. And even though they would like to be in friendship or relationship with the more worldly, shadowy people, the more high vibrational people are inspired within themselves to not keep staying stuck. And they do that work within themselves to work through these things and deal with the truth of it. And eventually those people, I'm sad, but I can't keep doing this. And you don't seem to want to do that. And they wish them peace and they move on. And they go to look to find other people who have kind of went through similar experiences, who also don't want to repeat that pattern. And then it's like, bummer, I can't believe those people loved and believed in themselves and aren't caught up in the illusion or about the ego or the image or the whatever. And then the shadowy people just decide to, because they're more invested in themselves. And eventually the other people see that. It's more about how it benefits them, how it's good for their ego and their image. They're just more about themselves. It's kind of hard to bring a dream into reality, which is supposed to be working together to bring a common dream into reality, romantically, from truth and love, when the other people, it's just really more about themselves and how it benefits them. Then from the 8 down to the 5 is the 3 of Pentacles. They don't work together with people cooperatively, and eventually people see the truth of it, and the 3 plus the 1 makes the 4, and people decide not to keep investing in them. And they could maybe not understand why people don't want to invest in them. I look this way, I have this certain status or image in the world, I'm whatever. Well, high vibe people also have status and image and attractive and charming. I'd rather go be in relationships with, and those things are kind of the superficial and shallow of Scorpio anyway. I want to be in relationships with people who encourage me to love and believe in myself, who are authentic, who are just and fair, who are loving. The superficial bullshit can go to the wayside. I'm not as invested in that as I am in these other things. And the shadowy people just can't relate to that because, of course, they think these things are the most important thing. The superficial and the shallow is the most important thing. But some people could have found them kind of eventually realize they're kind of superficial and shallow. And they might end up working with people who are just like them, who are more about how it benefits them. And they're willing to stay in the relationship. It's good for their ego and their image. They don't want to do love. They'd had other people want them to do love. They know they don't want to do love either. But they're willing to have sex with people and indulge them in a relationship. So if that's what'll make them keep moving forward with them in a relationship, that'd be good for their ego and image. Looks like they moved on. Looks like they got a new friend, a new relationship, a new job. It's more like having a job, not being inspired by truth and love. So there you go, Scorpio. I wish you peace, love, and joy, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.